Hi guys, it's Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with.
Nerdarchist Ted.
And today we're going to do, don't use an owlbear, instead use this monster.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
We'll also put a link to Amazon to Volo's Guide to Monsters, because we're going to be using that book in this one.
Alright, so this is another edition of Don't Use This, Use That, and today we're talking about the Owlbear.
Who on earth would ever want to replace the owlbear? They're so fluffy!
They're fluffy, they're awesome, they are crazy looking, and they're very much a staple of D&D.
They are.
Yeah, so let's break down the Owlbear. Armor class 13, hit points 59, got a 20 strength, 17 constitution, perception plus 3, dark vision, it's a challenge 3, and it hits pretty hard, d10 and 2d8 for its 2 attacks.
Okay. It's a brute, it's a beast, it's it's just an ill-tempered, really kind of animal that's been magically bred, created, however they came to be about in your world.
Absolutely. So it begs the question of, okay, well, what would you use instead of an owlbear?
Well, I'm going to go with, maybe you're adventuring in the Underdark, and there's not a plethora of owlbears running around in the Underdark. What is a DM to do? Well, if you turn to page 130 of the Volo's Guide to Monsters, you can find the cave Fissure. And I was so happy to see they had the same challenge rating, because this has always been a favorite monster of mine since the early editions of D&D. I believe Cave Fissure first appeared in Monster Manual 2. But it's just like this awesome ambush monster. And they have this like really weird way of doing things. They kind of hide at the upper levels of a cavern or a cave or a tunnel, and they lay out this filament, or they can shoot it, one or the other, and it's really sticky, and they use it to ensnare their foes. But let's break it down. It's a medium monstrosity, so it's a little bit smaller.
But they're both monstrosities, so that definitely works.
And it's also unaligned.
Also helpful.
Which I like, so it perfectly fits that role. Now they have armor class 16.
So better than the owlbear.
Yeah, there's another way the thing they have in common too, but I'll get to that in a minute. They do have 58 hit points.
So pretty darn close.
Speed 20, climb 20, so they can get around. They have perception, they have stealth. They have decent physical stats. They have blind sight up to 60 feet. That's another thing that makes them really useful, because chances are maybe you don't know they're there, but they know you're there. And again, their main thing is that adhesive filament they kind of use as a trap, whether they're going to shoot it out at you or they got it kind of laid out. They have spider climb, which just basically means they have a climb speed. They can move, they can go upside down, that kind of thing. Multi-attack, gets 2 attacks with its claws, plus 5 to hit, 2 dice 6 plus 3 slashing damage. So they hit pretty hard.
So around the same, once you look at their average damage, in comparison to the owlbear, the cave Fissure is going to be an underdark monster and has a lot of interesting things, and is going to be an ambush predator. So that has the ability to circumvent the issues of the owlbear. The owlbear is going to be visible. They're not hiding. They're probably going to roar and stamp and be a visible threat.
You may see trees that have been marked by them, like they're kind of angry animals, and they want you to know that to stay away.
Absolutely. So
the cave Fissure's not like that at all.
Cave Fissure's going to get that round of combat typically first, so it's going to be able to dish out just a little bit more damage, in the intro, before. Whereas the owlbear, you're going to see it and it's going to charge you, but characters might have the ability to use ranged actions or just react first.
Or get away, yeah. With the cave Fissure, they're hunting your players. And another way that they're very much similar, like the cave Fissure is kind of like a cross between like a crab and a spider, and the owlbear is, well, it's right in his name, owl and bear. So they're both mishmash monsters that possibly were created by a crazy wizard at some point or another.
Ah, those crazy wizards.
So how you use a cave Fissure is not going to be complex, just like the owlbear. You're going to either wander through its territory, or it's stalking you in the Underdark. Maybe certain maybe certain underdark humanoids know their locations and kind of like convince them to stay in their area by giving them offerings, and it's a way for them to use them to ward and protect maybe one of their strongholds or something like that. You could use them like that, or possibly as a captured monster. Maybe someone could have a tamed one. Maybe something's using a small creature could be using it as a mount. But for the most part, they're not going to be super interesting because these are your typical bruiser dumb monster. It just wants to eat you.
Absolutely. So I've chosen to go to page 79 in the monster manual, and I'm going to something that is near and dear to my heart, and that's dinosaurs. Specifically, my favorite dinosaur, which is an ankylosaurus. Now, the ankylosaurus is not going to do, on average, as much damage per round as the owlbear. Now, if you look at their averages, it can do about 24 damage a round, whereas the ankylosaurus is only going to do 18. But all of that is in a single attack, for good or for ill. You get a crit with one of these guys, and you're saying nighty night to a party or to a party member. That's how this thing works, because it hits for 4d6 plus 4 damage. So you roll an 8d6, that's a fireball if this thing crits. Now, break it down. Has no skills whatsoever. It's a little bit stronger, a little bit less tough on the constitution, but it has a 15 armor class, better than the owlbear, and 68 hit points versus the 59 of the owlbear. So it's going to win out on those numbers. So potentially, if you're talking about putting this against a low-level party, if they're having a bad dice night, you might TPK the party with this monster because they just might not be hitting, where with this thing hitting, it can drop players pretty easily.
Especially with a crit. Again, that's another monster where it's like, it's not going to be sneaking up on you, that's for sure.
Yeah, this thing is actually huge. It's unaligned. It's not a sneaker. It's going to be there, and it could totally be a territorial thing, just like you would see with the owlbear. You could use them in the exact same scenarios of you're wandering through its territory. It's protecting its eggs. It's protecting its young. It's looking for a mate, and it's at that time, and everything's about aggression. So there's lots of different ways that you could use this in exactly the same ways that you would use the owlbear. And truth be told, you get to walk away with hide or carapace or horns, all the different things that you could take away from the ankylosaurus. That's pretty massive.
Now, there's definitely some cool things you could do with that monster, because if you were to have a war ankylosaurus that's being employed by other monsters, it's been tamed, it's been trained. A large creature could ride that into combat, like an ogre, or you could use it for a battle platform for small creatures, where
a planquin for kobolds or goblins or things,
which would be a ton of fun because you could put so many of them on there, and they could have ranged and missile attacks, and they could, which would give them cover, then make them harder to hit. And then your melee fighters, they want to get in there and they want to try and shut that down. But the problem is, you then have to get past the ankylosaurus' tail, and he's not probably going to be that agreeable. And if he's been tamed by like goblins or kobolds or some other small evil race, they probably are not treating it well. So it has a bad attitude on top of a bad attitude.
Yeah, that would be actually totally awesome. I would go a step further, and whenever the ankylosaurus would attack, whoever's on the planquin, how we're going to pronounce that word, would have to make dex saves or be knocked prone.
Or you could mount ballista on it. You could mount a catapult on it. That is an area where you could definitely have some fun with it, and it becomes a feature of the encounter in addition to being a monster,
right?
Because it becomes almost like this mobile piece of terrain that your players are going to have to deal with.
Absolutely. So, what do you guys think? How do you handle owlbears? What would you replace them with? Great place to continue that conversation. It's down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time, stay nerdy.